Welcome back, listeners, to a new episode of the New Standard. And we are joining you on Christmas Eve 2022 after the Steelers' 13-10 victory against the hated Las Vegas Raiders. And always, I have my partner to my left, Big Neal. What's happening?
It was quite the night, Lance. We know what we saw. We're probably going to need some time to figure out exactly what just happened. The Steelers resurrected themselves on the final two drives of the game. This seems to be a staple of this team, something that we talked about last year. The best thing that the Steelers do, and it might be the only thing that they do well, is win games. And this was not a game the Steelers had any business of winning, just none at all until that final drive. I would even argue when Presley Harvin came on the field to punt with about 4.5 minutes left, I bet a decent amount of people left the stadium. It was that bleak at that point. The Steelers kicked to the Raiders, got a 3-and-out, got the ball back, were able to drive. What was the final drive? 79 yards, something like that.
Yeah.
Without question, the best passing that we saw all night, the best offense the Steelers saw all night, capped off by touchdown pass from rookie to rookie, Pickett to Pickens to take the lead. Then, unfortunately, as I believe, and somebody correct me if I was wrong, Terrell Edmonds ran onto the field to celebrate Cam
Yes.
Sutton's Cam Sutton's interception. Easily the best play of Cam Sutton's career. A great moment. No clue what Terrell Edmonds was doing or what he was thinking. That's just a terrible mistake at a great moment. The point being, though, it gave the Raiders with 3 timeouts the opportunity to possibly get three kneel downs, 3 short runs to end it, but a little trickeration in there. Motion sweep to tight end Connor Hayward sealed the victory for the Steelers that improve to 7-8 on the season. Playoff hopes still basically flatlined, but they're still there. They're not eliminated yet. 2 more games to go. Just an incredible sequence of events in a game the Steelers really just didn't have any business winning. I can't say that enough, but fantastic end. Good teams are playing their best at the end, and while this might not necessarily be a good team, they've got balls. You got to give them that. They're playing when the chips are in the middle, and you have to be happy with that.
Yeah, this is a great victory on a very joyous but tough night for Steeler Nation and for the Pittsburgh Steelers organization. A night when, rightly so, Franco Harris was honored for quite possibly the greatest play in NFL history. I think it is, and probably the greatest play in sports history. The immaculate reception on a very tough night. The Steelers, pull on some heartstrings and get it done. I mean, it's apropos that they would win in this fashion. I mean, if they were going to win this game, we all knew it was not going to be a blowout. It was not going to be easy. It was going to be a shenanigans game. Absolutely ugly. It was going to be a shenanigans game, and it was a shenanigans game. And you were absolutely right, Neil. That drive was 76 yards. That was the best drive of the game. The play call to hit George Pickens on the scene. That was a great throw. That's a great route. He hit him in time. That was just a great play there. Defense really played well. I think the big difference in this game was probably the turnovers. And I'm glad that the Steelers got this win because, Chris Boswell missed several field goals, and he could have easily been the GOAT to this game. But the Steelers stayed steady, stayed tough, stayed strong, and won this game. Looking at the stats, I think a key stat in this game, we talked a lot about Josh Jacobs and the Raiders' ability to run the football, but the Steelers did a really good job in defending the run, and they've put back-to-back games together in defending the run. They played well against Carolina, where I think they only gave up 21 yards rushing, maybe on 16 carries, maybe 1.9 yards per carry. And in this game, they only gave up 15 attempts, 44 yards to running backs, which is 2.9 yards per carry. Derek Carr ran it 3 times. for 14 yards, 4.7 yards per carry. So in total, about 20 carries, 58 yards. And I think that's where the game was decided. The Steelers played really well on third down. They played well in the red zone. They really held the running attack. They really did a good job on Devontae Adams, who had 9 targets but only 2 catches for 15 yards. Probably one of the worst games in the last several years of his career. This was really an all-around defense, solid defensive performance. Even got some pressure on the quarterback. What's your thoughts about this defense's performance in the game, Neal?
Let's keep in mind they held Carolina last week to 21 rushing yards. Carolina went off for 330 today in their surprise win over Detroit. Now, Detroit's not exactly a great defensive team. We know that, but 330 rushing yards is a bleep load of rushing yards in the NFL. The Steelers did an excellent job, I thought, and most notably, I could go off for days about this. What we saw out of Cam Hayward tonight was nothing short of a Hall of Fame performance. He was absolutely out of his mind. That's the best game he's played this season. Incredible performance, top to bottom, out of Cam Hayward, and it's nice to see younger brother Connor with the biggest rush of the Steelers night, 21 yards to seal the win. But defensively, I didn't feel the pass rush was much outside of Hayward early. I felt they gave Carr plenty of time to overthrow a bunch of passes. And to be fair, I really don't think it was easy to throw the ball. We saw a bunch of them sail on Pickett. Pickett was not sharp passing. They both missed a good amount that we would normally see them be able to put on the money. Not a great passing night overall. The Steelers pass rush, though, was not quite what we wanted it to be. I was saying via social media, a couple text threads that I had going on leading into that final drive, that now is the time we're going to see TJ Watt ramp it up and make a play. And you saw him going harder in that last drive than we saw him go all game. That's not to say he wasn't trying or anything, but you know he's a big spotlight player, and he came close on the 2 throws that they had. Carr just missed badly on Sutton's interception, but the valuable part is Watt was close enough to force the throw to make Carr throw at a spot I don't think he was all that comfortable throwing, and he missed badly enough that it led to the interception. Cam Sutton, though, was the one who read it straight out of his hand. He knew exactly where that ball was going. He tracked it like a center fielder, played it perfectly. You can't speak enough about Cam Sutton in that moment making that play. That was obviously mission critical for the Steelers' victory. They needed to come up with a play. The Raiders had 3 timeouts. They were able to throw the ball reasonably successfully at times, to a point where you could see them tying it on a field goal. But the Steelers shut that down very quickly. Defensively, they came to play tonight. They really showed, I think, what we hoped they would end up being as a defensive unit. I still don't think that we're getting 100% out of Watt, and it's safe to say now we're not going to for the remainder of this season. Whatever it is he needs to do in the offseason, you hope that he is able to do that. But a great performance from other players, again, who are not TJ Watt, in leading to a real dominant defensive performance.
I don't think I'm going out on a limb. I think this was probably their second best defensive performance of the year, given the moment and given what they needed to do to win the game defensively, because the offense had its ups and downs over the course of the game. And speaking of Cam Hayward, he had 7 tackles in the game, 4 solo, 3 assisted, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, and 2 quarterback hits. So he was really stuffing the stat sheet in this particular game, and it was absolutely hilarious that he did the snow angels in the game. But it was a tough start to this game. I mean, I wouldn't have anticipated that at the start of the game the defense would have came out and gave up a long drive for a touchdown. I was kind of shaking my head like, man, sometimes in certain situations, when you have a lot of emotion going into a situation, sometimes the emotion can get in the way of your execution. You can be a little bit too ramped up. You can be a little bit too present. And it just seemed like they were a little bit of a step slow, but I think they really settled down and played some quality football. Man, looking at some of these numbers in this game are just absolutely unreal. I mean, the Raiders only had 201 total net yards. I mean, they
I'm
only had
not even sure the last time they've given up that few yards. That's a really impressive total. Whether being a factor, obviously, but that's excellent. You don't get that level very often, no matter who you're playing in the NFL.
and of that, Neil, 58 of those were rushing yards. So they gave up about a buck 43 in the air and only 58 on the ground, which is ridiculous. They only gave up 3.9 yards per offensive play, which is great. They only had 52 plays. Even though the Raiders were 6 of 12 on third down, they weren't getting much when they were converting the third downs. I mean, this was an excellent performance in a big time spot. I want to ask you this: how much? I'm trying to think of the word. Kenny Pickett, game winning drive, big moment, immaculate reception game. Franco passes away. All the NFL is watching. He gets it done in this moment. How much? How much does that mean in that locker room to this organization? How much does it mean to this team for Kenny to get it done in this type of moment, in this spot on the big stage? What is this team walking away thinking about Kenny
I
after
th-
this game?
I think I didn't get a chance to listen to Tomlin speak after this game, but I would imagine he would say something to the effect of he was at his best when his team needed him to be. The game was on the line. He played at his best, and he did. And one thing I had tweeted this, and of course I've got everybody screaming at me after the fact because they're all geniuses. But Pickett to me tonight, it really looked like he was shying away from the pressure. I mean, physically, when they got close to him, his mechanics changed quite a bit. And in the weather that they're in, you don't have much room to spare. You've got to be able to keep your body compact and still deliver down the field. And it looked like they spooked him a little bit. That last drive, though, he was nails. He was right where he was supposed to be. He made great reads. Um, Probably missed a little bit with the Freiermuth throw that he had to kind of double catch. The Najee throw that he caught between his legs. I mean, literally caught between his legs. Probably not his best throw, but he made a great throw down the middle to set up the eventual touchdown, which was a laser. He put that right on probably the easiest touchdown George Pickens will ever catch. He didn't have to move, straight on his hands, and they covered off him. Pickett saw it the entire time. It was a great drive. I would think as a team, you're looking at the final result of a game like that. I would imagine Tomlin echoed a similar sentiment to that. You want your quarterback playing at his best in the moments that you need him to, and that was late in the game with the game on the line. I said this a couple weeks ago. If Pickett had this kind of poise against the Jets, against the Dolphins, they just made the playoffs tonight, or at the very least, they're neck and neck with the Ravens right now in terms of wild card positioning. It's frustrating to see it, but at the same time, you have to take a good amount of stock in the fact that he is improving, and he won ass ugly tonight. Not a good game by him by most stretches that you'll see, but that final drive, he put everything together and he made the plays he had to make when his team needed them to be made. So you take that away. Beyond that, there's a lot of work that they need to do. They've got 2 games left. You want them to be able to get as many reps in as they can, continue to fight while you still have bullets in your gun. And I think tonight is something that makes you, at the very least, excited to see what's going to happen next. That isn't worth much. I'm not saying this is a playoff team. I just, the fact that they're in the position that they're in is pretty remarkable to me. I would not have expected this.
Yeah, this was a foxhole game. I mean, this was definitely a foxhole game. I mean, it was ugly for most of it. And definitely, like Ennis Ave Record said, please smash the like button and please subscribe. And Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody out here listening to the program. Thank you for the support this year. Again, please like and subscribe. The New Standard. And Double H wrote, Canada deserved to be put under the gun, but I do understand that he was probably advised to keep his quarterback clean and prevent unnecessary contact. Before you speak to that, I was a little frustrated in not trying to throw the ball on first down. And it just felt like they were being very intentional with how they were going to approach this game. And we saw kind of in the Carolina game last week that their identity offensively emerged, where they were going to run it heavy, they were going to rely on the defense, and they were not going to put their quarterback into compromising positions where they could turn over the ball. I mean, what was your thought on the game plan? I mean, and what's your thought on Double H's comment? Let me put it back up here.
Yeah, put it up.
Canada deserved to be put under the gun, but I do understand that he was probably advised to keep his QB clean and prevent unnecessary contact.
I think the main part of this, I would say, is we'll read it like this. Najee Harris, 16 carries. Jalen Warren, 6 carries. Kenny Pickett, 3 for 9 yards. And of those 3, he did absolutely everything he possibly could to stay in the pocket. And 2 of them were sneaks. So really, there was one play that he ran outside the pocket and attempted to gain more than just falling forward kinds of yards. He protected himself. It was obvious that was the game plan. They did not want him going out on the move, and they took the ball out of his hand in adverse conditions. The weather was terrible. It's hard to throw a football in that. It's not just throwing it either. And I don't want to get into the hands thing, but you got to grip the ball. It's going to be hard as a rock. There are, I don't know what Accra Hines Stadium field it has, but every NFL stadium has some type of heating mechanism under the playing surface, not the sidelines, obviously not in the stands, but they have something to prevent the ground from completely freezing at deeper levels, which is what would make it really hard. The ball doesn't sit on the warm ground all that much during a game. They're on the sideline where it's not heated. They, might be around the jets that they'll have out there. But point is, the ball is not going to be the best that you would like it to be to throw particularly well. You don't want to have a pass-heavy plan in place for a game like this. You need to be able to run. But as both teams demonstrated, if you're not able to run the ball, you're not going to do a whole lot. It really felt like Vegas did much more than the Steelers did. And I think it's because they hit probably on a few more deeper passes than Pittsburgh even tried to hit in this game. But Pickett, he turned the ball over, terrible interception. I'd be remiss if I didn't point that out. A really bad interception. I felt he had a couple other throws that could have gone the other way as well. But they didn't run him. They wanted to run the ball with their running backs primarily in this game and control the clock, control possession, and not let the weather be a factor. The Steelers got put into a position through 2 missed field goals, which is now a trending topic that, Lance, we're going to get into come Wednesday. Chris Boswell is shaky now. He's missed 5 field goals his last 2 games now.
Yeah.
I get it's 52 yards in the element, but look, he's missing field goals. It's that simple. That's a problem. When you don't have that benefit, we've seen what's happened to the Steelers when Boswell doesn't kick consistently. He's 14 of 21 on the year. That got some guys cut. That's bad. If Pickett isn't going to throw, and I think Pickett's final attempts, he had 39 attempts total. We had 9, I think, on the final drive. So look at 30. It's the same as Carr. He would have completed roughly the same going into that final drive. He had a very similar game to Carr minus the interceptions. He protected the ball. That's really the main thing. And they let their defense win. Now, we've been on here, Lance, on the New Standard podcast, talking I don't know how many times this season about not wanting them to place everything into the defense's control to win or lose. Doing that
Correct.
in the NFL today doesn't seem to be the best strategy. They did it tonight and it worked. And makes sense. I mean, you saw the way the defense was playing. They did an excellent job overall, and they had the best. Well, Max Crosby was out of his mind. I mean, another incredible player. I don't know what the offensive plan was to stop him, but blocking him with tight ends was not doing it. They kept doing it anyway. But they got great defensive performances from a few of their individuals, and they were very gap sound. The front seven played very well. So you're happy with all of that if you're able to run successfully. The Steelers really were not able to run successfully in this game. You mentioned, I mean, 27 for 106 on the game. That includes Hayward's 21 yards at the end. It was a bad rushing game. They're really not any better than Vegas was. This really came, in my opinion, it came down to the Steelers made the three biggest plays of the game right at the end. The touchdown pass, the interception, then Hayward sealing it on the motion sweep. Those are big time plays, and the Steelers got those plays tonight, and the Raiders didn't. That's really what this came down to. Two pretty evenly matched teams, as it turns out. I don't know how good either of them are, but hey, Vegas' season is over, and the Steelers isn't. So that's positive.
Yeah, I mean the Steelers are 7-8 good for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean that's what they are. Speak to this comment from my man Claude Bishop, and big up to Sultana College classmate of mine. Big up to Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated. Dan Moore less was great against Max Crosby. Now here's a situation where I think when you watch it, stats don't always tell you how well a guy played. In the game, Max Crosby had 2 tackles, 4 tackles total, 2 solo, 2 combined, had 4 quarterback hits. I think there was one play that in the game that Kenny Pickett made, one of the good throws he made in the game where Max Crosby really cleaned him up right after he released the ball. And I thought Max Crosby played pretty well today. I thought he was definitely someone who was impacting the game. And I think I thought he really stymied the Steelers wanting to be a little more aggressive in the passing game. What was your thoughts on how Dan Moore or less played against Max Crosby and the Steelers playing against Max Crosby?
I didn't get a great sense of Moore as an individual. We'll see. We'll watch it again. I will say this: to your point in regards to statistics not always showing everything. Crosby was dominant. I don't care what his stats were. He was in the backfield most of the game. 4 quarterback hits is a lot of hits. They didn't stop him. He was not stopped. So I don't. That's not to say he didn't move around a bunch. It's not to say that Moore didn't have some success with him. The plays that I saw Crosby really standing out, it seemed like there were tight ends on him, which is to say they went in 12 personnel. Crosby took advantage of that, shot inside. He's an all-pro level player. He's a great football player. I thought he played exceptionally well tonight. I expected him to play exceptionally well. We'll take another look at it and see individually what might have come out of that. But Crosby was a force. I mean, game's a lot different, I think, if Crosby isn't in there for the Raiders.
Yeah, this was a very interesting game, and I know in watching this team at 7-8, I picked them to go 7-10 this year, and so I'm
Yeah, you
just
didn't.
amazed that they still have a remote of a chance to be above 500 and possibly get into the playoffs. I mean, I think the Steelers are trending up. Be it how small or how big that is debatable. I still think this team is devoid of some talent in some areas. But the one thing that Neal said, I think, is apropos when you think about this team is it its best quality is somehow figuring out how to win games, and that's not a bad thing. If you want to contrast that with the Detroit Lions, who has everything, they have everything to play for, and they go out and get shellacked by Carolina. They just didn't figure out how to win a big game in a big spot. and I think this is a game that I think emotionally, I think the Steelers can really get something out of this game, and maybe it's a game that can carry them in the last two, and they get the 9-8. Because correct me if I'm wrong, they play Cleveland next, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and Cleveland hasn't looked great with Deshaun Watson back. I mean, they
Deshaun
lost
Watson looks
today.
legitimately like the worst quarterback in the NFL. And granted, he was playing in a monsoon, horrible blizzard conditions today, but my God, did he look bad. They're lost. That's not a difficult team to beat.
Yeah, so I think, I think this is a team that, as you said, as we joked, that, just for Tomlin finishing 9-8, just to be able to joke and say it, that they might be able to do it. I think it
It
largely
just
could.
it
I
just
mean,
pisses people off so much that streak would continue. The best part is that they make up their own. I can't believe that's the standard the organization sets. Like, go back and find me the one time Mike Tomlin has said specifically that's his goal. The media are what talk about this. I work in media. I will hype up those kinds of things because it's interesting. People do talk about it. That's kind of your job. You need to put stuff out there that people want to discuss. Otherwise, you're not going to be well read and you're not going to have a job. Mike Tomlin's goal is to win a Super Bowl. Like pretty much every coach in the NFL, he fails at that job every year. Okay. I don't know what you think the standard is, but just because people in the media, one radio host in particular, poo-poos the idea of a streak having any value at all, doesn't mean that it matters anyway. It doesn't make a difference. We want to see our team win. Why would we not want him to have a streak like that? I'd love it if they won the Super Bowl every year. It might get boring after a while, but yeah, I would hope that would happen. It's not going to. And yeah, I apologize. It is the Ravens next.
yeah, they do play the Ravens next. That might be good though, because it
It's a good
doesn't.
it's a good time to get the Ravens
Yeah,
in
it doesn't
what could be
seem.
another 6-3 kind of game.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like Lamar's going to be back. I mean, the issue is that they got to go to Baltimore to play that game. But um, man, I mean, stranger things have happened. I mean, and my dad was spot
Last
on.
year.
I mean,
It was
yeah, I mean,
weirder
stranger
last
things
year.
have happened. And my dad was spot on. My dad was like, "Yeah, they're going to win this game. They're going to figure out a way to pull it out. They're going to win the game." I was like, "Well, let's hope so." I mean, this was a really interesting game, and you guys are right. Thank you guys for pointing it out. That the Ravens are next. I know some people in the chat were talking about some of the criticism that Matt Canada took in the post game, but I didn't hear that stuff tonight. I think LT said it. But again, man, a solid victory. I mean, you win in correct. It's a great victory on a Christmas Eve in a big time moment. You got critical plays made by your rookie quarterback to win the game. So, I mean, of course, there's a lot that they could get better at, but very likely we could be talking about the Steelers are 500, after January 1st, if they can somehow win. And Neal, it really resonates when you look at the Steelers schedule and you look at how they've played this year. I mean, that stretch against New England, Cleveland, New York, and Buffalo, of course, they got blown out in that game against Buffalo, but that New York and New England game were very winnable games.
Oh yeah. Yep.
I mean, those were very winnable games. If they play halfway decent football, I mean, you win one of those two. I mean, we're talking, I don't know what the odds, I don't know what Steve Carnecki is. That the guy's name, Steve Carnecki on CNBC or MSNBC, who does the
me.
odds with he's the guy that used to do the political stuff. If he gets the electoral college votes in this state and whatever, that guy.
Him, sure. No idea.
It is it, and so I mean, man, it's you hate this what it could have been type of seasons. Lifted one said the Miami game as well. The
Yep.
Miami game is another game in which
The Miami
defense got
game,
a lot of
they had the
turnovers.
ball late twice, and Pickett turned the
Yeah,
ball over twice.
yeah.
If he is playing the way he is now, if he is seeing everything the way he is now, I think they win that game. They absolutely beat the Jets. They had a 10-point lead. They win the Jets game. We can do this all day, but that's kind of the blessing and the curse of having a team. And I said this in the preseason. This is a team that's going to be rough early. They were not going to be good early on. Just going by what we know of the coach and how young they are and the time it's going to take to kind of build things up, they're going to be playing their best football in December and January. How good that's going to be, I'm not sure, but they're going to be a significantly better team late in the year. How big of a hole they're going to dig early is what is going to define the season. That's exactly where we are right now. They have to win both of these games, and it's not a guarantee by any stretch. Who knows what's going to happen with Lamar Jackson? The Ravens are in the playoffs. They're only a game now behind Cincinnati for the division. I call it a hunch. I'll bet John Harbaugh circled this game and said this is the game we want Lamar back for. If we can survive with Huntley until then, we will, and that's what he's done. They're going to put Jackson back out on the field. The way their defense is playing, that's not an easy team to beat. So Pittsburgh has its work cut out for it for sure, but it's not dead either. As crazy as it is, it's still not dead. Everyone else wrote it off, but here they are.
Santa Claus is in his sleigh and he is dishing out wins. And this win was as unlikely as Santa Claus jumping down your imaginary chimney. If Santa is anywhere, he probably got stuck in Minnesota in the weather. He probably, the
You don't
sleigh
want to be
came.
here. You don't want to be here right now. Trust me.
The
I think
sleigh.
it's -8.
Yeah, I mean, I had my cousin was going to go to the game, but his flight to Pittsburgh got canceled. He
Yeah.
can't make it to Pittsburgh till Monday.
Yeah, most
So
airports shut down. I mean, it's
yeah, they
crazy.
shut down. So it
Absolutely
was
crazy.
crazy. But man, a very emotional win, very emotional game. You could really see all of that. The gravity of the moment was really on the owner's face when he had the nice words about Franco. You could really see the pain and the moment, the joy, the pain, the sadness, everything hit um, Joe Green when the camera focused in on him. But it was great to really see the Steelers come out here and get this dub on this night. It would have really sucked. It would have really sucked had they not figured out some way to win this game, and they did get the win. Before we get out of here, Neil, is there anything else you want to point out? Any number, any nugget, or anything that stood out to you in the game?
Not yet. It's cold. I'm pretty tired, but I want to wish everybody Merry Christmas if you celebrate. Happy holidays. Be safe. Be careful. Stay warm. Looks like there's a lot of problems throughout the general listening audience in terms of weather, but your Pittsburgh Steelers have won 5 of their last 7 games. I think that's something that people
Yes.
should take seriously. They are at Baltimore on New Year's Day, a game now that does have a little bit more significance than we thought that it would a couple weeks ago. And then they are at home January 8th against the struggling Cleveland Browns, who are just about ready to clinch yet another basement finish in the AFC North.
Yeah, and before I get out of here, man, I want to thank everybody. I gotta ask you one thing, Neil, real quick before we get out of here. And before we do, man, Merry Christmas to all you guys who do celebrate Christmas. Happy New Year to all you guys. We'll be doing a show definitely on that New Year's Day. Maybe not, we'll figure it out. We'll figure something out for New Year's. Um, yeah, man, thank you guys for supporting us. We are all almost monetized. So please, if you have not subscribed to the show, please subscribe to the show. Let that be our Christmas present from you to us. Please give us subscription and a like. Real quick before we get out of here, I read something about Sean Payton. I just wanted to just to ask you real quick. It's not Steeler related, but it's Christmas Eve. Um, Sean Payton is getting back into coaching next year. They say he's chomping at the bit. He's got Vic Fangio as his defensive coordinator. It- what job do you think
Master.
he takes? I'm thinking he
I
takes the Houston job.
I have no idea. All of that is so. All of the. Let me give you some insight. This is how this stuff works, and it's a good segue because we saw the most pathetic example of it ever early this morning when Adam Schefter tweeted out that, and it's not an exaggeration, Tyler Huntley was he's what, the fourth alternate for the
Yeah.
Pro Bowl. Tyler Huntley. Tyler, what that would mean, essentially, considering the voting and who all got selected and everything like that, he's either ahead of Justin Herbert or Trevor Lawrence, one of the two of them. For this even to be something significant, it's so self-serving and is so it's just inane. There's no point to it at all. The only person who could possibly be selling that information would be the agent of Tyler Huntley. Agents are the ones who generate the overwhelming majority of the news. So anytime that you hear sources tell me, that's a player's agent. It's almost always a player's agent unless it's in response to something from a player's agent. A team source could be an agent, and if it's within a team, it's usually a designated person that they use to leak information to the big-time reporters. Giving that information to the reporter, it's a quid pro quo thing, okay? They will exchange information on something else at a different time. That's how they foster their relationship, and they go back and forth. Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, probably the two biggest in the business, have incredibly large contact lists. And the bulk of it is, we can talk about this. I'll let you know what I'm hearing about this. What do you have on that? They go back and forth like this. I don't know who Tyler Huntley's agent is, but for him to get Schefter to tweet that out, Schefter is either maybe 12% awake when he did it, or he owes him big, because considering Huntley is entering his restricted free agency, which is not even full free agency, it is so transparent what he's trying to do and where he's getting that information from. To say nothing of the fact that it's completely meaningless. They don't even play a Pro Bowl game. What's he going to do? There's no point anymore. They don't need to have three quarterbacks on the field. That's how Mitch Trubisky made a Pro Bowl, by the way. They needed somebody to run plays. That's all it was. They don't do the game anymore. So nobody cares. The idea, though, that there is significant information that can come out of that is very much true. It's that's the economy of communication within the NFL. The point is, you don't really need to go off everything that's being said. Because a lot of times those reporters will just say, I'm reporting it because that's what he told me. That's all I'm reporting. I'm not reporting that this is going to happen. I'm just reporting to you that somebody's talking about it. And that's a lot of what this is. As far as, sorry to go way off the point here, I'm half awake myself. Sean Payton and his agent are floating this stuff now at key and strategic moments for NFL beat reporters and people like myself to get the information and publish it, to get the word out on who they are, because they're trying to win the hearts and minds of the fans. Okay. If you have, I don't know, a former offensive lineman who's never been a coach before running your team, and you might fire him at any minute, you kind of want the owner to know, without violating any rules, that you're available. This is what you have in mind. It's putting yourself in position to be at the top of a list. Not that Sean Payton wouldn't be at the top of the list, but one thing that's not being discussed is he was still under contract with the Saints. So there's compensation that's going to have to be negotiated before he would go anywhere. And that's going to be a part of wherever it is that Payton would want to go. As of now, though, we don't know who's going to get fired. I mean, I think Nathaniel Hackett is probably not going to come back as the Broncos coach next year. Call it a hunch. There are some others too. Cliff Kingsbury, I think it's laughable. I don't think he has a job come Tuesday, to be honest with you.
Nice house, though.
Yeah, exactly. It sucks being Cliff, but there's no way he's going to be around next year. There's no way their general manager is going to be around next year. I think Arizona is probably a good place for Payton, because it's a good opportunity for him to go in and just basically run everything on his own, kind of like what Doug Peterson's able to do in Jacksonville. It's interesting in that regard. It's just, there's a lot of other things that are going on, and him allegedly lining up a defensive coordinator now is it's meaningless for that to go out to the media now is nothing more than his agent putting it out there so they can kind of create a market and a bidding war for their client services, along with saying, well, the Saints are going to need some compensation, so you guys are going to have to kick in for this as well.
Hey, don't start any rumors, Claude. Felicia Ollie Howard. Yes, don't start any rumors. Don't get anyone in trouble before Christmas starts. Big up to Felicia. Big up to Mel. Big up to everybody who joined the show. Again, big up to Sultana, classmate of mine from the University of California, Berkeley. Big up to Delta Sigma Theta. Again, before we get out of here, Merry Christmas to everybody. Please bring it in safely and have a fantastic time. And it feels good on Sunday with the Steeler victory as we bring in this Christmas day. But with that, we are going to get out of here. And as always, tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe. Go Steelers.